What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about some Star Wars Outlaws creator drama. This was something that I feel like it just kind of came to my lap, on Twitter. Twitter shows you just the funniest things sometimes, and this is actually becoming, I think, a big deal. And this is something we've kind of talked about before, so I do think it's up my alley in terms of influence, right? When does it become when a company flies you out and, does all these things for you? When is there like a sense that you owe them? And this is something, again, we've talked about in the past where, when the IGNs of the world and all these sites come out and you see whether it's console wars or whether it's whatever it is, right? You'll have people accuse them of like monetary things. They'll say, oh, they were paid off, right? Paid off reviews. And my point that I've said in videos past has always been, I do think there's a currency that is, kind of given and taken in the gaming industry for impressions, for reviews, but I think it's the currency of like exclusivity. I think it's the idea that if you play along, you get more opportunity. And I think that is a problem. Now, it gets more nuanced and all of that kind of stuff, but I do think that's generally a thing you have to watch out for in the industry is you kind of have to almost go deeper and say, okay, well, they gave them an 8 or a 9. Well, is there any like deeper thing I should look at where, were they treated, to go to Disneyland or, did they do this or that? And, is there a feeling that maybe they had to give them a slightly higher score than they were going to? These are kind of things we've talked about in the past. And I think to an extent it does happen, right? I mean, I'm no massive fan of game journalists. I'm no massive fan of creators that kind of just bow down and worship these companies. But, I think for me, it ends up just becoming whoever they are, right? If it's your favorite creator, if it's your favorite game journalist site, right? For me, it just becomes you watch enough of their content, you hear them. I feel if you're aware, you can kind of break it down and figure out, are they being genuine? Now, some people are very good at deception, right? They're very good at hiding how genuine they are, but I feel like you can normally tell if somebody's almost too positive and then you can kind of like trace it back. I think that is, if you're aware of it, I think you can kind of spot it. So in terms of Star Wars Outlaws and why it's a big deal, I think it's kind of like the perfect storm, right? Because you have a game that is somewhat divisive. You have a game that is coming from Ubisoft that's largely disliked, right? So you have baggage. You already have baggage for this game. Now you couple it with the previews have kind of been 50-50. Depends on who you listen to, and it kind of depends on which preview that you saw. Some people, like in the more newer previews, had nicer things to say than they did 2 months ago back in June when they also got a couple hours with it, right? Some people in this new preview window for Star Wars did not get flown out. That's another thing you have to remember, right? It's not like every single YouTuber, every single reviewer, all that stuff. It's not like they all got pampered before they did their preview, right? Several of them just did it online, right? Where they were at their place, Ubisoft was there, and they just kind of played it through like the streaming type thing. So you got to have to keep that in mind as well. But this basically, I think, came down to a German YouTuber, like where the drama like actually starts, right? This German YouTuber, there's a pretty big account. His video was actually taken down, and like the reasoning why, you got to translate it from German, right? And then maybe something is lost in translation, but it seems like he, in the beginning of the video, he pushed pre-ordering the game, and he normally doesn't push that. Comments were kind of mad. He took the video down. He issued a statement saying basically a third party came in and said, oh, no, this is no, you have to take this down and we have to kind of review it. They reviewed it, and the biggest things that they wanted was to change the opening, change the wording of the opening. So was his original opening more of just, like, was the whole video just impressions, and then they came in, were they paid by Ubisoft, right? It's just like, well, if it's a third-party thing and Ubisoft's not involved, or why would that third party be involved at all, right? But they look at the video and they maybe they say, well, you didn't say right away to pre-order the game. Like, we want people to buy the game, right? And that is where, these problems kind of lie, right? I think you can be pampered and given exclusivity and all that stuff. I think you can do that while still holding on to your morals. I truly do. It really just depends on like how much you care about getting your opinion across on a game. That might be controversial. That might not be what people are actually capable of doing, but I can only speak for myself. And it's like, well, number one, I've never had those kind of opportunities, right? The closest I've ever gotten is like, yeah, I'll sometimes get a game, a week or two early. That has never changed my, you know what I mean? I really stay true. If I like the game, I like it. If I dislike it, I dislike it. If they never contact me again, which sometimes that's happened, right? And I'm aware of it, where it's like, hey, if I lean into this game, maybe this is the last time I work with blank company. And it's like, I just do it. You know what I mean? So I can only speak for myself. Again, it's something that I feel like you kind of have to just, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to monitor your favorite creator. You shouldn't have to monitor IGN or games. And it's probably not necessarily even those. It's probably like the second tier down, right? Like those might be the ones you have to monitor. You shouldn't have to monitor them, but you kind of do, right? But I do believe like all those things can exist. For Star Wars Outlaws, right? They went like whale watching or something. They went on like a jungle cruise type excursion. They went to Disneyland, and it's like they got to build lightsabers. And I saw people kind of tearing into that stuff, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you can. I'm not saying you can't do that, but like Hogwarts Legacy, people got to go to Universal, right? They got to play with wands and go around and do the amusement park. And I've been to Universal. I think it's very, very cool, right? So like, you think about that, I guess. But again, for me, it just comes down to, well, what's the end opinion of that person? If I believe they're being genuine, look, if you can be genuine and be given free stuff and free experiences, that's the best. You know what I mean? Like that's just being very level with you. Like, who wouldn't do that, right? If you could guarantee or close to guarantee that you give just your honest opinion on the game, whatever it might be, you give that honest opinion. And in the process, you're playing the game in a sense, but you get all this free stuff, and then you're still honest at the end of the day. There's nothing wrong with that. You didn't compromise. You know what I mean? You didn't compromise. And I'm not saying you should be overly, positive or overly, like neither ends of that, right? But I think that's possible. I think where you run into the issues is potentially what's happening with this. This is where I get mad. This is where I think that things are kind of broken, because when it becomes they are actively changing things you're doing in your video, well, whether this guy believes or doesn't believe, right? Like his morals or his viewpoints aside, now you're messing like with the message that people get. And that, to me, it's a blowback on Ubisoft, but it would also be a blowback on the YouTuber, right? Where it's like, did you know that you would have to say certain things and it's got to be structured certain ways? And if you weren't comfortable with that, then you did those experiences and you did compromise yourself, and then now is where we're at. And it's not just one guy, by the way. I think there's like several of them. They all seemed foreign to me. Like I saw like a couple Germans. I think I saw a couple people in the UK. I didn't see like any US influencers that are facing kind of this backlash. So again, in terms of like my stance on it, hey, take these possibilities, take these like excursions, take these fun little things, as long as it doesn't change the end goal. But now it's almost separate, right? There's your morals and like what you would make the video on, but now it's like, well, you also have to submit it, and then they might review it and say, hey, you weren't exactly being positive enough, or hey, we noticed you didn't tell people that you can buy it or pre-order it like right now, or you should pre-order it. And it's like, well, if that's not what the person it'd be literally like me. I mean, this is a dangerous video maybe for me, right? Because I could be a hypocrite later, but I don't think I would. So many times, I mean, I've talked about pre-orders where I'm not like a huge believer in them, but I've also talked about like you do what you want with your money, right? And I don't want to force you, and I don't do that. Even in my reviews for games, I really try to not force anything on the person. I say my experience, and then I have you guys take what I say, and you do whatever you want with it, right? So, okay, then I get, all this pampering done, and then all of a sudden I'm saying, yeah, this is a game you 1,000% should pre-order. Like, I'm expecting you to do it today. But that goes very much against what I've said in the past. That's my moral, and then also maybe I was forced to do that, but now I'm kind of stuck, right? Because now I have to do it because I did all these fun little events, and then also now I break my morals. So this is how it can get you. You know what I mean? And to bring it all back to Star Wars here, what's not great is it's already a game in a weird spot. And I can see this getting bad rather quickly. I can also see like, I hate the word, but like misinformation. I could see misinformation like going around kind of bigger, for this game, because you've had people that have been positive, and I feel like if there is positivity with this game at launch, here's what I think is going to happen, right? At launch, if there's reviews that are positive, I think almost all of them, at least by a certain group of people, will be called out and said, oh, you're all paid off. And the simple fact is, not all of them were. Not all of them did compromise, right? Like I said, during this last little preview, not everybody got flown out. I watched like a Mr. Matty Plays, right? He didn't get flown out. Again, like, could he be compromised because he got to play the game for 4 hours? Maybe. But it's like, well, you watch and you learn about the person and you make your own call. You know what I mean? But he didn't go. So, you know what I mean? So it might be different depending, but say he gives it a good score. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people lumping things together, right? So if it gets good scores, they're all paid off. All because of this. And it is a real issue, but it doesn't seem like it's too many people. But I mean, to play kind of both sides, right, or to be aware of both sides, it is something to pay attention to. Like, this is a problem, and this is something, going back to the very beginning of this video, like, you got to be aware of this stuff. And again, because it's Star Wars, because it's Ubisoft, I mean, those two right there, like modern day Star Wars, for me, isn't all that great. And then Ubisoft, right? Ubisoft has its baggage as well. So you already have that, and then you have years of people kind of just not trusting influence, which is fine. Like, if you don't want to do that, that's totally cool. You know what I mean? But you've had years of influencers sometimes breaking that trust, journalists breaking that trust, not all the time, but some of the time. Now you combine them. Well, we know that they take you out. We know that they give you free stuff. We know that they give you free experiences. That's always happened. We also know, all of this stuff with Ubisoft and all this stuff with Star Wars. Now combine the two, and now we might have like a bigger issue than what it actually might be, right? But we don't know yet. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's to the point, and this is why I say always for review scores. You know what I mean? Again, you shouldn't have to do this. You shouldn't have to monitor it. But do you trust the review scores for Star Wars Outlaws? And then do you trust it more or less than any other game? Some people just don't trust review scores in general, which is totally cool. But do you trust the reviews for Outlaws? And then if you do or don't, do you trust them more or less than the average game? Do you trust them more than Black Myths, right? A week before. Do you trust it less than Black Myths, right? It's something that we're going to have to deal with, I think, in about like 2 to 3 weeks. We'll see what happens with me. Like, I have worked with Ubisoft actually in the past. If I get it from them, I get it from them. If I get it with my own money, I get it from my own money. As I said, and I got thousands of videos to back me up, my opinion's not really going to change, depending on which outcome, how I get the game. That's not really going to impact my final verdict on it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.